Welcome to another edition of Strictly Education. I am your host, Dr. Tahira. Strictly Education is on location at the 2025 School Safety Conference here in Las Vegas. And guess what? I had the opportunity to sit down with the Executive Director, Officer Curtis Lavarello, to talk about school safety. Now, why are we talking about school safety? Well, that's because we're opening schools in the next couple of days, and for some of you, you've already opened school. And I know school safety is at the top of mind. Before we can think about programming, before we can think about curriculum and instruction, before we can think about anything else, we prioritize school safety. Last year, there were over 250 school shootings. We are committed to preventing school shootings, school incidents, and catastrophes throughout America's school. So this episode is dedicated to just that. Audience, I ask that you sit back, you relax, and I also want you to think about your school safety plan and where you are as it relates to safety and security of your scholars. Check out Strictly Education. Thank you so much for joining Strictly Education, this back to school episode where we're going to talk about safety and security, which is at the top of mind of so many educators, educational leaders, parents, even students for that matter. We focus so much on curriculum and instruction and programs and things of that sort in a school district, but we also know that safety and security is the number one priority. And so I think this episode is going to be so important as we open up our schools in the coming days and the coming weeks.
Right.
Many people may not know about School Safety Advocacy Council, where you are the executive director and you're working with the president, Sean Burke. Can you just tell the Strictly Education audience a little bit about School Safety Advocacy Council, and also tell us a little bit about the work that you've done leading up to this?
Sure. Well, thank you, and I appreciate being here. It's great.
We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
You're such a busy man. To grab you and to have you on the show, it's like an honor.
Listen, it's great to get this word out, and you're right, it's an important message. No, I'm really pleased to head up the School Safety Advocacy Council. This is our 21st year now, and 21st year that we're putting on the nation's largest school safety conference.
Which is where we are now.
Absolutely.
To let our audience know.
Las Vegas.
Well attended.
Yes.
Well attended conference. This is my first time, but I usually sit a group, but just amazing.
Sure. And we have over 1,000 school administrators, law enforcement executives from all 50 states and elsewhere, as far away as Australia, Sweden. So we really have a great group of people here under this roof. We say it's probably the largest gathering of school safety decision makers anywhere on the globe. But yeah, we started 21 years ago. But my background started in law enforcement in South Florida. And so from there I transitioned. When I was retiring from law enforcement, I became the head of the National Association of School Resource Officers.
Oh, wow.
And so I traveled extensively with that. And this incident occurred in Colorado, the Columbine shooting. And that was my first experience to a national tragedy. And I was asked at that time by the Clinton administration to take part in the White House committee that looked into that tragedy.
Wow.
And that was, again, my first step into law enforcement on that scale.
Right.
And so I was responsible I traveled out to Colorado at the time with a great team, including Dr. Scott Poland, who was one of our keynote speakers here. He did the mental health review of that incident there. But so being head of a National Association of School Resource Officers, which I headed up for about 6 years, the one thing that was bothersome to me then is it seemed at the time we were trying to police our way out of the school safety issue. And I got together with my colleague now, Sean Burke, who works here with me, and we really wanted to make sure that all of the stakeholders that should be engaged in school safety were. So the idea and the goal behind creating the School Safety Advocacy Council was to bring in school administrators, school psychologists, keep those law enforcement executives, but create this really well-balanced portion of the community firefighters we have here.
Right.
We have, and this year, we're really pleased. I mean, we have, I want to say we're about, right now, almost 30, 40 elected school board members that are here.
That's important.
From around, and that's really important because these are folks who are guiding and making decisions that are paramount to keeping kids safe.
Right.
So yeah, and so between that and the SRO Association and now the School Safety Advocacy Council, I took part in the review of the Sandy Hook incident when that took place in Connecticut, and then again with the Virginia Tech incident when that took place there. So those three incidents really created a well-rounded opportunity for me to sit back and look at what can we do as a nation, what can we do as school leaders, what can we do as law enforcement leaders together to hopefully reduce that potential risk.
Right.
And so that's why I'm here.
Right. Well, I thank you for just creating a platform for educators, educational leaders like myself, other educators, school personnel, law enforcement, mental health providers, just all those who are responsible for the safety and well-being of children in a school building together under one roof, where we can have courageous conversations, where we can learn from one another, where we can reevaluate what it is that we're doing to ensure the safety of those who are in our care. A conference such as this is designated for who?
Well, it's really designed for those practitioners in the school or the leadership of a community.
Okay.
We have, again, a nuance to this conference really here this year is we have several city managers here that are leading their towns and their communities.
Okay.
But it's really designed to bring people together. The training that's offered here, and I think we had this year 47 different instructors and keynote speakers from really all over. But I think it's equally important when you bring together this many people under one roof is listening to the networking that's going on. It may be that afternoon reception, or it may be just folks sitting out by the pool chatting, but I walk around this hotel here and I'm listening to people talking about keeping kids safe. And to me, that's so impressive. They could be talking about 100 different things. You're here in Las Vegas. But they're here and they're focused on what I need to do when I get back to my respective school or community to keep my kids safe.
That's right.
And to me, that's the moment.
Right.
When I hear that and I walk around, it gives me goosebumps sometimes to sit back and know that the passion of the people that are coming here is amazing. Is just amazing. It's incredible. I wish we had 5 times the amount of people, but having 1,000 people here is a really testament to what we've been trying to do for the last 21 years.
Right. And just as an educational leader myself, I go to conferences, workshops, seminars, summits all of the time. But I also recognize that my first priority as a school superintendent is safety and security.
Absolutely.
So just as I prioritize my own training and learning with curriculum and programming and building my own leadership capacity, I found it to be extremely important to attend a conference like this to make sure that we're doing all that we can, boots on the ground in my current school district, to provide a safe, caring, loving, supportive environment for not just my scholars, but for my staff and my faculty and my families. That's important.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that's why I'm here. That's why we continue to bring teams. I just think that is equally as important as some of the other conferences that we as educational leaders attend, because this is an essential conference. And so again, I thank both you and Sean for creating this platform.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the current landscape of schools. You know, and I know, there are schools that are already opening. There are schools that will be opening in the coming weeks. It's a lot going on. We're planning on our curriculum. We want to make sure that we have our programs in place, that we have enough staff to be in front of scholars when they come in. But there are also safety concerns. That's what keeps people like me up at night. You know, what do you believe for the 2025-2026 school year is the most pressing safety concern for schools?
Well, you know, I had an opportunity to address the folks that were here with us this week. And one of the things I said on Tuesday at the opening was, while we're all here gathered to learn and take some strategies back to our communities, the sad part to this is that we know 100% that right now there's some young person out there struggling with a mental health crisis that is planning to open the school year by doing an horrific tragedy like we've seen in the past.
That's scary.
100%.
That is so scary.
It absolutely is. And it may have been in the planning for 6 weeks, it may have been in the planning for 6 months. And we, as a nation, we have become better at finding a lot of these things before they occur. However, we also sadly know that some of these are going to slip through the cracks. We don't know where it'll be. We don't know what state it'll be in. We don't know. But rest assured, some young person is planning this right now as we sit and have this conversation. So there's nothing, you're 100% correct in saying that, school safety has to be paramount to everything else that educational center is doing. Because without it, all those other portions fail.
That's correct.
If kids don't feel safe going to their school, or, like you said, the things that keep you up at night. There were the same things that kept me up as a law enforcement executive when I was on the patrol, knowing that somewhere this could happen. So we've got to get better, and we have gotten better. Where I see it going is I think we're doing better in being able to identify more of these students early, because we've become a lot more focused and a lot more cognizant on mental health and the threat assessment process in this country. We're doing tremendous things. And I had a conversation here with a sheriff not too long ago in the state of Florida, actually. And I said, Sheriff, we don't stop a lot of these school tragedies from occurring because we carry high-powered rifles, or because we have the best walkie-talkies, or because our communication, or we got good cameras. Most of them are stopped because there was a caring adult who had a child that felt comfortable to come up to them and say what was going to happen. We know the kids who are planning these things are going to talk about it. They're going to share it. So that's our golden opportunity to stop it. And the thing is, that doesn't cost a lot of money.
So I want to build on something that you said several times. You said we're getting better. Yes. But how is it that we're getting better when, in researching for this particular segment of Strictly Education, I found that over 250 school shootings took place in the 24-25 school year. How is that? How are we getting better, though?
It's alarming, isn't it?
It is very alarming. When most school districts have 180 days.
Right. That number is actually down. And so for the last year and a half, we have seen a reduction for the very first time in many, many years.
Wow.
We've seen a reduction in the number of school shootings we've had, which is promising. And I attribute some of that to the fact that we have gotten better. There is a much greater focus on that threat assessment piece with young people, training our staff to identify where a child may start to move into a mental health breakdown of some kind. And whether that person is the clinic, the nurse at the school, or the cafeteria worker, or the front desk person who every day Johnny comes to school and he's happy-go-lucky, and all of a sudden Johnny's coming to school and he's not so happy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Johnny's going to be the school shooter.
Right.
But it's a chance and an opportunity for us as leaders to sit back and say, let's perhaps find out what is bothering this student. And those things were where we're finding the opportunities to get a hold of this child and really have the opportunity to go. We just stopped one in Florida recently with this kid. We were right to the day before he was going to actually carry out a Parkland-style shooting.
Wow.
He had the ammunition, he had the guns, and it took one of his friends, a young lady who decided to go to her coach, her softball coach, and share the information that she just felt it was concerned that he had been despondent, he had been sad. And they found the plans in his room of where every camera was in the school, how many students were in cafeterias at the time. This kid had done his research and his homework and was ready to carry it out. And we were able to stop it. Again, not because we carried sophisticated equipment or we had anything in place, but we stopped it because somebody took a moment and talked to this little girl and created an avenue of discussion with her, and she felt comfortable to go share it with that person. And that's how we stop something like that. And that's where the opportunity lies, and that's what we're seeing a lot more of.
So are you also sharing with my audience that it is important to set up a structure where students feel comfortable sharing, or even
100%.
families feel comfortable sharing?
100%. And I think it goes even further. One of the things when we go out and we do these assessments, we look at the ways in which students have the opportunity to come and reach out to an adult.
Yes.
And we've been very successful with some of the anonymous tip lines.
Yes.
I think that's a great thing.
Yes.
For students to have that ability. Here in Florida, we mandated it.
Yes.
Throughout, every school has to have
Yes.
an opportunity to have these, and it gives these kids, because if we just have an opportunity where we tell a kid that, if you see anything wrong, or you're being bullied, or you see somebody being harassed, go to the office and report it and take your file. That's not how kids communicate anymore. We have to sometimes embrace how they communicate,
Right.
whether it's social media,
Right.
whether it's their cell phones,
Right.
whether it's being able to have that anonymous tip line where they
Yes.
can share their information,
Right.
and making sure we're keeping it anonymous.
Right.
We're not,
And keeping it anonymous.
absolutely,
Right.
that's very,
so
very
that they
important.
would feel more compelled to share in the
Absolutely.
future. 'Cause
Absolutely.
once you break that trust, you're not going
It's
to be able to
gone.
get that back.
It's gone.
You're not going to be able to get that
and we,
back.
And we experienced that in Florida, because when we first started the program, they were able to be tracked, the
Right.
tips. And so it immediately put a hush on the kids reporting. We saw it in our numbers. And then once the state came out and removed that ability to track, we saw the numbers starting to go up.
Sure. How can school districts leverage social media to meet kids where they are, to encourage them to communicate?
Yeah. I've never seen a time since I've been in this business in 30 some odd years in the school safety field. I see so many of school districts really buying into the whole social media. They're promoting all the good things they're doing. I think this helps a lot, because even the kids who may be struggling at times, they see an opportunity for them to be part of this program. They may not know what's going on, everything in that school, but suddenly they're on their phones or their tablets every day, and now they're seeing the schools promoting this, or they're recognizing this, or they're celebrating that. And I think that there's some real opportunities there. I use Palm Beach County School District as an example in Florida. Every single day, their social media team is promoting all the good things that are going on in all the Palm Beach County schools. And the kids they've seen the reduction come down of kids who are negative or just troubled in any way. So I think the social media, that was a great question, and I think there's a lot of opportunities still.
Lots. Yeah, because kids think social media belongs to them.
Right.
And so they own it. And I think it's wonderful when a student can use social media to speak to an administrator or speak to the school district and say, hey, I think this kid may have a problem, or I heard something, or here's a screenshot of a group text, where this person has made a threat. You might want to check it out. While that may not be anonymous, I think we have to make kids feel that, their secret is safe with us, right? So I think communication is so key to preventing a catastrophic event at a school. Do you recall any time where communication failed and it created a disaster?
Yeah, there are a number of incidents, and usually if we look back and we look at some of the most horrific school incidents that have occurred, you will find some part of communication that broke down and really didn't serve the community of the school or anything really well. And the one that comes to mind is, my law enforcement career was in Broward County, Florida. And sadly enough, we were the home to the Parkland school shooting. And
it still haunts us.
It haunts a lot, and it haunts me particularly because the day it occurred, deputies that I used to work with and were texting me, just saying, "Kurt, this is the real deal," and all those people needlessly had to die. But communication there was so many breakdowns in that particular incident in itself. You had law enforcement agencies that couldn't talk to one another. You had 9/11 calls. Kids were making 9/11 calls to the call center, but it was going to the wrong 9/11 center. And they didn't know that. So you had a city police department that was not where the school sat, getting all the real-time data, and you had the sheriff's department that was there that was not getting the real-time data. So, and they couldn't talk to one another. And so you had the radios breaking down. There were dead areas of the schools
Oh my goodness.
where they couldn't communicate. And then right down to just communication, between the security on the campus that day. When this shooter arrived there that day, he arrived in an Uber.
Yes.
And he got out of the car, and the security staff there immediately identified him as a kid that had previously been known as a kid who could possibly do a shooting. And he got out of the Uber, and he's carrying a rifle case, but he didn't communicate that to anybody. And these were a lot of things that I'm not sharing anything that was a secret. That
Correct.
these are things that came out in the Stoneman Douglas follow-up hearings. And so we have to sit back and look at that. Even cameras that failed that day. We were looking at cameras saying where was the shooter at the time, and the communication broke down because we didn't realize. I wasn't on the scene, but the folks that were on the scene never realized that there was a delay on the camera. So when they said he's on the second floor, that was 7 minutes ago.
Oh no.
So we were
Right.
looking to move into the second floor, but he was already on the third floor,
Right.
taking the lives of more kids. I know of very few incidents that I've reviewed over the years that have not had some communication issues. So it's so important, the training, as you head into these things. I shared with a group of our leaders here this morning at the conference, just the fact that oftentimes in these assessments we find the law enforcement agency has a plan, the school district has a plan, the fire department has a plan, and they've never sat down at the same table and discussed their plans together. Question is very, very good, and communication is still a major concern. And it's one of the first things we address when we come in with a district and look at assessment fees, is that everybody has to be on the same page
Right.
before the incident occurs.
So have you ever done a threat assessment in a school district where the communication was just all over the place?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
How do you get people back on track? Because that's really important.
Yeah.
Aside from they hiring you to do this work,
Yeah.
but just a quick, what is a quick fix that a school district can do to ensure that everyone's on the same page as it relates to communicating when there is, a crisis?
Well, we did an assessment for a very large metropolitan school district, which I'll remain nameless at this time.
Sure.
But one of the issues my team immediately found when we got there, this was a district that had over 250 schools, and we immediately found that there were school resource officers on campus that didn't want to be any part of the SRO program. They were all there because their law enforcement agencies were punishing them. These were I don't want to say the misfits.
Yeah, I get it.
But
yeah.
the chief and the sheriff felt like if they were out of sight, they were out of mind, so let's stick them in a school. And I can't think of anything more damaging, especially having come from this field. But one of the things I assured the superintendent at that time when we sat with them, I said, I'd like to bring, as part of this, it wasn't even part of the initial assessment, I said, but I would like the opportunity to bring every one of your police chiefs together. There were 11 at the time in this county, as well as the 12 as the sheriff. And the superintendent looked at me, he goes, I don't think you'll ever get everybody on the same page here. And I said, if I don't, you don't owe me one dime. I said, but I promise you I will. And now, fast forward 3 years later, okay, this district constantly praises us. They said the number one thing that we did in this district was create this school district-wide emergency response task force.
Excellent.
That consisted of every police chief on it.
Yes.
And now, if there's a dead area where schools can't communicate, that police chief will convey it. The superintendent sits on this committee. The superintendent will immediately call their communication piece, and it's fixed within a day. There are no more SROs in this district that don't want to be there.
Correct.
Right. We're gonna make sure we pick the right individual.
Right.
We're gonna train that individual, and we want officers in those schools that want to be there and want to work with our young people, because it is a different breed.
Of course. Of course.
It's a specialty.
It is a specialty, because I heard some of the SROs here at this conference, and I hear them speak with such passion, and you can tell they want to be there. These are people who actually put their lives on the line to protect other people's children.
Right.
right? So it takes a very special person to want to do that. But just imagine if you didn't want to do that and there was an issue, that arises in the school. That would be absolutely tragic.
Yep.
Earlier when we talked about Parkland, you mentioned that there was someone who recognized the shooter, who shall remain nameless, right? But someone recognized the shooter, and said, but that's the person that had the problem.
Right.
Mental health issues. When we hear about these mass shootings throughout the country, whether it's in a school, just had one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? New York City, just recently.
Right.
The man came from Las Vegas to New York City, all attached to mental health.
Right. Right.
All attached to mental health.
Yep.
And at schools, we're finding that we are doing more than just educating children through the academics. We're also identifying mental health. We're providing those services, right? How important is it for a school setting to provide or integrate mental health support to our children today?
It's incredibly important, and it even goes beyond that. One of the approaches I see here happening across the country, and I use Florida as an example in this one as well, are go down to like Naples, Florida, where the Collier County Sheriff's Department, and even just north of the Lee County Sheriff's Department, they have embraced. The sheriff hired a psychologist to work in their department to look at behavioral threat assessment, but they have a co-op with the school district, Lee County Schools, so that the sheriff's psychologists are working with the school district psychologists, and they're having regular dialogue and regular meeting to sit back and identify. And we're really starting to see, the fruits of labor here for what and the investment of dollars that these communities have made. And we're starting to see more of these young people identified well before. I always say, I kind of liken it to football because that was part of my background too. I don't want to respond to the shooting when we're in the end zone ready to go in.
Right.
I'd like to address this when we're on the 40-yard line, way out here.
Oh yeah.
And be able the opportunity to stop it from happening. And that's our greatest opportunity. And those things really don't cost a lot of money. When you look at being able to stop a tragedy like a Parkland or Sandy Hook, these kids were communicating this.
These kids were communicating,
and nobody was responding to it.
So would you recommend, now that schools are opening and we're reviewing those plans, we're making sure that all of the stakeholders in the school building understand the plan, do you recommend that those plans also include a mental health component?
100%.
Really?
100%.
We never thought about that before, we're just thinking, all things safety, right? But not necessarily going into the notion that safety does include emotional safety, psychological safety, right?
Yeah, and it's important too that I go into school districts, as part of the assessment process, and oftentimes I'll find they have a crisis team in their school to address a potential tragedy, but I won't see counselors on the team, or I won't see the school nurse on the team, or these are folks that are integrally involved. A school nurse is so paramount and important because they will oftentimes start to see the breakdown well before many of us do. They'll see that kid that comes in third period every day that all of a sudden has the bellyache, but the bellyache goes away in the fourth period. Right, so this kid has an issue in the third period class. What's going on in this third period life that's causing? This will grow. This will fester if we don't address it. So now that school nurse has the ability to go back to the team and say, hey, to the counselor or to the resource officer or to the school administration, say, hey, let's start connecting some of the dots. The Parkland incident. As I hate to continue to go back to that, but the gentleman, I don't even want to use the word gentleman, but the shooter there had 55 different interventions from different agencies, different schools, different police departments, and nobody connected the dots. And there were so many opportunities to do that, and we missed them. We missed them. And that's inexcusable.
What you're saying to me is that anywhere in America right now, we have got children who may have 55 different interventions, 25 different interventions, several interventions, and we're not paying enough attention.
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
That is really scary.
It is very scary. But along with that scariness, there's opportunity for us to do better. And we are seeing that. I think I alluded to that earlier.
You did.
We are starting to, I've never seen a time in my law enforcement career
Yes.
or my career in school safety where I've seen so many police chiefs and sheriffs around the country focused on working with their school district
Right.
to bridge this
Yes.
this piece.
Right.
And committed superintendents, I go to, I travel, I speak at a lot of schools, administrator shows, and I've never seen a time where I think we're seeing more superintendents embraced. One of our goals with the Advocacy Council this year is to want to get the word out. I think one of the areas we do lack in is training elected school board members. So we're making a big focus here within our organization to make sure that we have the program out there that at least school elected leaders can come in and know they have a responsibility in this. They have to embrace this because it's on them.
You're talking about we have a responsibility.
Absolutely.
In school districts across America, there's one person designated to be in charge of all things safety.
Right.
That person has the responsibility.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for school safety in schools across America? Is it just one person?
It's never one person.
Come on. It's just one person. That's why I'm hiring that school safety leader. I'm paying him or her well.
Yeah.
No?
They may be the band leader, okay, but everybody else is making the music, right? Okay? And that's what you have to look at in this. When I go onto a campus to do a safety assessment, one of the first questions I ask every principal, I said, can you tell me who's in charge who's responsible for school safety on your campus? If they tell me a name of a person, then I know we have a lot more work to do.
Right.
But if they tell me everybody on this campus is responsible, then I know they get it.
That's right.
They understand it. And typically, that's coming from above them. The superintendent is driving that message. Everybody's responsible.
Everyone's responsible.
From the bus driver who first picks up that child in the morning, drops that child off at school, to the man or woman who greets that child coming into that school or getting off that bus, to the coach who's out on the field, the librarian who's we're all responsible.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
And we have to work together.
And we do. And also, too, our safety protocols, our safety plans, the expectations, communication, that has to be communicated and shared and trained widely, not just limited to those who are in the classroom.
Right.
The clerical who's in the main office needs
100%.
to know, right? Yep. The person who's in the cafeteria, where there are a lot of events that take place in the cafeteria.
Yes. Yep.
That person sees every child, right?
Right.
That person also needs to know what the protocols and the procedures are.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what makes for a healthy school setting.
100%.
Yeah.
We worked one of the smaller shootings. Again, I'll remain nameless with the district itself, but we were able to find out information of a young man who was really starting to have a crisis and was looking to, at the end of the day, take his own life at the school. But it was brought to light by a cafeteria woman who came and said, every day this kid comes here happy and he eats all his food. Now he sits there, he looks at the food, she says, I'm taking away his full tray of food every single day. And she said, one day when he walked out of here, he had a tear in his eye, and I asked him if everything was okay, and he said, nothing's okay. That cafeteria worker had that information, took it to an adult in the school, and they were able to stop what would have been a young man taking his own life. So you're 100% correct on this team. We have to all be on the same page. We're that extended family.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's incredibly important.
Wow. Wow. So as a superintendent, I know there are other school leaders who are watching this particular episode. It's overwhelming. We're responsible for educating these beautiful babies. We're responsible for making sure that our scores, are up and that children are learning and all the athletic, events. We're responsible for so much. And now safety and security is our responsibility. It's overwhelming.
Yeah.
We didn't learn all of this when we all earned our degrees and we were getting our licenses to lead, but it is what has become part of our work.
Yeah.
What message might you give to a school leader who's overwhelmed by all of this?
Yeah. Well, you know, we sadly sometimes have to recognize times have changed. I date myself oftentimes when I say we're not in Mayberry anymore. But the fact of the matter is true. And I often liken it, you know, not too far from where I live in Florida is a place called Walt Disney World.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and as a kid we went there and we just wanted to see every character and everything was good, everything was wholesome. Now we have 1,000 cameras everywhere you go at Disney World. You get fingerprinted when you walk in.
Yes.
Your bags are searched.
That's right.
That's the happiest place on earth.
Yes.
Right?
It is.
Okay, but times have changed there too. And so it is the world we live in.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean these worlds we live in, we don't have opportunities to make sure we're doing everything we can to prevent a tragedy from occurring, and we have to be focused on that. Nobody wants to think of the tragedy, and I don't want teachers going to work every day thinking this is going to be the last day. There are things that, you know, you look at safe corners now in schools and you put that line, and a lot of schools are putting that line across. Every kid behind that if something happens. And to me, it looks like a reminder of the potential that what could happen from a young person's perspective. But there are things, you know, training the adults on campus to be prepared, not scared, prepared. Because even though we have these numbers of school shootings, the one thing we do have to keep in mind, schools are very safe.
Yes.
Schools are very safe places. Yes, we're getting better at identifying the tragedies that they occur. And there are a lot of different issues. We could probably talk for the next 10 hours on all the different aspects that play into this with guns and you know, the mental health piece we talked about and video games and everything else under the sun. But we are getting better, we're doing better, and we just got to keep marching in that direction.
Keep marching in that direction. A culture that doesn't focus on safety and security has high absenteeism, has an issue with teacher retention. How do you retain teachers if they don't feel safe, right? And so many other things. But what does a culture that is focused on safety and security look like?
Well, you know, I think it starts at the top. I see, you know, I look at some of the best examples that I see around the country, and there's some really good ones, and I see political leaders that have embraced it. I see parents that have embraced it. Parents play such an important role. Sometimes we often underestimate, you know, that piece, and you probably have a number of parents viewing this very episode right now, and I hope they always understand how important of a role a parent plays in the overall safety of a school. We get a lot of calls. Now, we're not a regulatory agency. We're not part of any state organization, but we get a lot of calls from parents who will call us and say, I've reported this to my principal and they're not doing anything about it, and my principal's sitting on this. Where do I turn next?
Right.
And we'll give them guidance as to, you know, to go to the superintendent, to go to the school board if you don't hear from there. But you know, it's when we look at these models of these great cities and states that are doing stuff, we often see that. We see that piece of parental involvement. We see the piece for the community leaders all being embraced. A lot of good communication between city managers, superintendents, all on the same page, understanding how vital that school and that education center is in their community. And so I think there's, again, a lot of opportunities in that area. And to take some of these model agencies and allow other agencies to replicate what the success, not copy it, but to replicate some of the strategies that are working.
Of course. And you really have to model it after how your culture and climate, you know, can adapt to it, because every culture is different, right?
100%.
You know, technology can play a really big role in enhancing safety and security in a school district. We now have the opportunity to use artificial intelligence. We have all sorts of apps and devices and the use of technology. Talk to us a little bit about how, you know, innovative tools and technology can be used successfully to enhance safety and security at a school district. And maybe there are some examples, I don't know.
Yeah, technology plays an incredible role. I mean, here at the National School Safety Conference this week, we had over 100 different vendors all across the board, again, so from some of these AI things to cameras, to panic buttons, to everything under the sun. Right. A lot of really, really good technology that can enhance the overall school safety picture, quite frankly. But I always tell districts at times, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your students to make sure that you pump the brakes, because I will promise you this, every safety director in the country after Parkland, their phones are ringing off the hook. Yes. Every salesperson at every company that sells anything. Yes. And oftentimes it's overwhelming. Yes. They'll get 100, 200 calls for selling every gadget under the sun. Now, somewhere in the mix there is some good technology that should be looked at. But it's behoove of every district to make sure they sit back and assess what their needs are, where there are gaps, and look at the low-hanging fruit. Oftentimes, the first things a school district can do may not require the expense of going out and making a multi-million-dollar purchase, knowing your kids, removing that sign in front of a school that says principal parking. That's a simple thing, and we get ripped. And I'm not looking to take away any of your viewers' parking spots.
we take pride in that principal parking, teacher of the week, teacher of the day. So you're telling me, and not to interrupt you, but that's really an important point, because I think you probably will raise some eyebrows when you said that.
I'm sure I will.
You mean to tell me that could be a safety concern?
Yeah, and I'm going to also take away the school resource officers' parking spots too. Because if a young person sees those 2 spots empty, they know that the 2 leaders of that school that would have anything to do with safety are not there right now.
Oh, wow.
And it plays a big role. And those spots are empty,
yes.
The leader's not there. And if you look at, and you go back as far back as the Columbine shooting, that they planned a year before, they knew exactly the schedules and where all the administrators were. They documented in their diaries. They knew how many kids were in the cafeteria, so when they set off explosives, they would have the most of their mass casualties.
Wow.
They knew that school inside and out, and they kept records on it every single day for a year prior. So those simple things, getting back to that parking spot, I know it's never a popular thing when we do our assessments and we go into districts and we put this down on paper. But yeah, it's an opportunity to close that one little gap as to who's on campus and who's going to be prepared to address this crisis. We created something called a parent report card, and we had it up on our website for a while. I think it's still there. But it was an opportunity for parents to take this tool and share it with their principal, just an observation, saying, here are things I see. I see the back door propped open every day at PE, or my daughter said that she sees kids jumping this fence every day and coming onto the campus, or this gate is left open every single day. And parents can take this and check off things that they may see. I don't see adults out with kids in the bus drop area. Yep. And just give this back to a principal and allow that principal to know, hey, here are some gaps. If we can see it out in the neighborhood, you got to be able to see it on your campus. And so, yeah, it's extremely important to look at issues like that.
Yeah, and that's a great way to bring parents in as your partner.
Absolutely.
In terms of safety, security. But school districts have to be willing to accept that feedback and not look at it as criticism, but as working together, because there are things that parents and community members may see that we may not necessarily see, because we are so stuck into our routines.
Absolutely.
And you brought up the routines. That was a little scary. Yeah. So sometimes we may have to switch up the routines that we think are part of a structure, but it also can put us in jeopardy as well.
Right. Well, even when we do, when we do these safety assessments and we send a team into a community, or we've done some of the largest districts in the country, including right here in Clark County, Nevada. We did over 330 school safety assessments right here where we're sitting today, and it wasn't easy at first. The superintendent at the time gave us the marching orders to go out there and look at these schools, but we still had principals at the time that said, we don't want you on our campus. And we don't look at ourselves as an outside entity playing the gotcha game. We're there, we look at ourselves as a partner, an extension of what we're trying to do and keep kids safe. We want to give a fair, because in most schools, quite frankly, we look for everything the school's doing very, very well. Keep doing it. keep doing it. Most schools are doing incredibly wonderful things.
Right.
But we also look at the opportunities to enhance safety issues.
So let's fast forward.
Okay.
Right. And so fast forward 5 years from now. 5 years from now, what do you predict will be the biggest change or the biggest evolution in how we approach school safety? I know technology, things are ever changing, but what do you think would be the biggest change or the evolution in how we approach school safety?
Well, we're starting to see some technology come out now that drones, for example, and robots. We had it here this week.
Yep.
We had a number of companies here, looking at drones and robots that patrol school campuses.
Yep.
It's hard for somebody like me to sit back and say I'm going to embrace that, but I understand that this is a much bigger force than Kurt Lavarello.
Right.
But I do see AI playing an increased role in school safety. It's already started. I mean, several years ago we started seeing, cameras outfitted now that could just detect what a gun looks like, or detect two kids who may be arguing in a hallway, and now it triggers that alert over the radio saying that there are two kids making movements that are conducive to a fight brewing.
Wow.
Geofencing
Yes.
around the school, the tracking of young people's, phones,
Yes.
and tracking what social media sites they're on.
Right.
If they use the word bullying, it automatically geofences and sends an alert to the school.
Wow.
Some would say it's a big brother thing. I mean, but when you ask the question where we're looking at 5 years from now, this technology is going to play. I just went to a school in South Florida where the school was outfitted with 20 drones that would attack a school shooter as opposed to any person.
Wow.
It's technology that's having a lot of people, and a lot of our legislators are looking at it right now. I just hope it doesn't come into this thing where it's a knee-jerk reaction and we legislate something too quickly before we understand what the ramifications may actually be. Because technology that's not used properly can have the opposite effect.
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I have an audience, I'm sure this is a captive audience watching this show and just thinking about their own safety and security plans and protocols and procedures as we open our doors to millions of beautiful children for the 25-26 school year. And you've talked a lot about safety planning and threat assessments and being proactive and preventive measures. And I really thank you for sharing your expertise. But every educator who's listening to this segment, who's listening to this show, what can they take from this show, or just in general, what can they take from this conversation about school safety and implement immediately? What's the one thing they should think about implementing immediately as we open our doors?
Communication. Communication, knowing our kids.
Knowing our kids.
And this thing, it doesn't take a lot. Years ago, I remember when the Columbine incident happened, thinking back to that, we convened, and again, I was part of that panel, and we convened the United States Secret Service at the time, and President Clinton's direction was, you are the people who try to identify the next presidential assassin, so tell me what the next school shooter looks like. And these experts who are so versed in this behavioral science got together and they started to try to come up with common denominators for what that next school shooter looks like and who it is.
Yeah.
And not a lot came out of it.
Yeah.
Because it was all over the board. But the one thing that came out of it was that over 70% of these school shooters at the time, we were looking at about 30 different school shootings, over 70% of them communicated the fact that they were going to do this ahead of time to someone else who didn't report it. So when I say communication, it's knowing that I think the most important role, like for us as an officer, is that mentoring piece.
Yes.
To understand that kids feel comfortable in coming up to me as Officer Lavarello, or maybe it's Coach Lavarello, because I'm part of that school. Become part of that community. And the same thing for your viewers watching. Don't be afraid to challenge things. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If you see something, oftentimes our brains are programmed to think everything's going to be good. But if you see something that's a concern, you see this young man having a problem, or you see somebody around a school taking pictures, or don't be afraid to share this with the principal at school. Don't be afraid to call the superintendent's office or call the police chief's office. I tell people all the time, pick up a phone or send an email to the chief. I'm going to react. If I'm a chief of police, I'm going to react, and I'm going to immediately get with the principal. I'm going to immediately go with the superintendent and say, hey, let's take a look at this. Maybe it's nothing, but challenge us.
Yeah.
Challenge us as leaders.
Yeah.
And I imagine most superintendents feel that way too.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And you know what? It is often said that when children communicate they're in crisis, they're letting you know, I need help.
Right.
I need help. So we have to pay attention to the signs that they give us. Yeah. And that's their way of letting us know that they need help, right? So you talked about someone having, 50 interventions. That child was crying out for help.
Yeah.
Like, please help me, because I think that I might do something where I'm not really in control, or at least I don't believe that I am. Help me. And they're screaming out for help.
Yep.
And and we have to listen. We have an obligation to listen.
And I think part of it too is also to make sure that we understand, the school is an extension of the community. The community is an extension of the school. Yes. They work hand in hand. When I go to a community or a school and I hear, well, the community has a gang problem, but we don't. I know we have some work to do there. Because we're not sharing information, we're not looking at strategies together, which we should be on these incidents. So,
yeah, and you're right. So you held a successful conference. Congratulations, both you and Schonberg, for your brave work and your bold work, especially in times like this. And so we appreciate this. What do you want your attendees to walk away with?
Yeah, well, I want them to walk away with, maybe they learned something from our instructors. Maybe they learned something from some of the other attendees that were here. I opened the conference up on Tuesday morning, and I had people shout out the number of years of experience in education and law enforcement they had. And I think at the end of the day, I said, in this room, we have about 25,000 years of experience. So we can learn from my 50 some odd instructors here, but there's a lot of answers and a lot of solutions out there. So I hope they walk away with some strategies to take back and take a good look at their own school. Share the information, make sure they're communicating maybe better with their local community, their local school, that there's a partnership starting to be embraced, and that they're open to new ideas and new suggestions, when it comes to school safety, because it's constantly evolving. School safety. Yes. Things are changing. And so we have to stay attuned to that and make sure that we're doing everything we can, and understand that, if you had asked me a question as to what one of the most frustrating things have been over the years, it's that sometimes we get on this roller coaster wave of making school safety important. It seems important, right, the next 3-4 months after a tragedy, and then it simmers down. And some of that I attribute to the fact that we're such a resilient nation. We bounce back from tragedies very, very quickly. But when we do so, oftentimes we become complacent, and that complacently leads to vulnerability. And so we shouldn't be in that mode. This should be something that's at the forefront of our mind every single day.
We're going to leave on a positive note, because this was such a heavy discussion, and I really appreciate you pouring into all of us, my Strictly Education viewers. I thank you so very much. What words of encouragement that you can give my audience members right now as we are opening up our doors, we're opening up our schools? Words of encouragement from someone of your caliber, who is highly respected, around the country for the work that you do and your knowledge and expertise in school safety. Go.
Honestly, I'm encouraged by the fact that so many more school districts, they are communicating, they're reaching out to the kids, they're instigating strategies that are allowing kids to communicate with them. They're looking at those partnerships and they're not afraid to have these very open and frank discussions. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of success in the future. And kids are so, social media is not a bad thing. They're communicating issues to us, and they're letting us know. And so being part of that and being part of that young person's life, I think we're going to have some real success out of that.
Yes, yes, and be bold, right? And be bold. And at the end of the day, we're here for kids.
Absolutely.
We're here for their safety. We're here for their comfort. We're here to instill a sense of confidence in them. And when you have a child who comes to school who feels safe and loved and cared for, and their well-being is definitely prioritized, they know that they're going to thrive. They're going to do well. Right?
Absolutely.
School should be a safe space for everyone.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yes. It has been an honor to sit with you. It's been an honor to just spend time with you and to learn more and more. Every time I speak to you, I just learn more and more, and I'm more and more encouraged. But I'm also, whenever I speak to you, I think back to my own leadership and the work that needs to be done, and the work that we are doing. And I think where I am now, there's always opportunities to grow. And whenever I speak to you, I'm just like, well, I want to make sure we have this in place. I want to make sure we have that in place, because I never want to be the district that says it can't be us.
Right.
It won't be us. Not mine. Not here. Because that's not true. We're all vulnerable.
I commend you for saying that. That's important.
We're all vulnerable.
Yep.
It doesn't matter where we are. We can be in the most affluent of areas. We can be in the most underrepresented of areas. We are all vulnerable.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be our children. It can be someone off the street.
Yes.
Just think, in New York, this wasn't a New Yorker who did this. This was someone who came from another part of the country to New York to commit a crime. This can be any one of our schools.
Absolutely.
And so I thank you for your time, your energy, for your expertise. I know that you have 1,000 people that you need to continue to greet, but you spent time with Strictly Education, and we are so grateful and so thankful.
It's been an honor. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor to have you.
Thank you.
So if someone from my audience wants to reach out to you,
Sure.
someone's, hey, can I ask you a question? Hey, come to my school district to do a threat assessment. How might they contact you?
The easiest way is through our website, which is the schoolsafety911.org.
Okay.
Tune in. There's
schoolsafety911.org.
.org. Yep.
No spaces between the numbers.
Nope. And most of my information's on there. Sean Burke, my colleague, his information is on there. We have a number of initiatives we're doing this year, a number of safety assessments. When I leave here in Vegas, I think I have about a 3-week or 3-day little break, and then we're doing our first assessment down in Florida.
Yeah.
So we're going to get right to work.
Yeah, you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
But it's good work. Thank you for all that you're doing on just keeping the nation's children safe.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Big task, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks for what you're doing here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye now.
Okay. Every child, regardless of his or her zip code, regardless of the language they speak, regardless of their social economical status, deserves to be in a school that is safe, that embraces them, that cares for them, that cares for their well-being, and ensure that they have a pleasant day. School's supposed to be a happy place.